Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including 4-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfalla.
And Ray Alfalla is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Peak Freeze iRacing Series.
3-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a 3-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare 2 laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.
Well, good evening and welcome to round 3 of the GT Trophy Pro Seasons live here on Apex Racing TV. My name is Andy Thompson. I am joined in the Coventry booth today with Dave Whitehouse, and on production we have Dennis Branch. So today we are at the Circuit de Jules Villeneuve. Dave, what are we looking forward to today's race then?
I think with 2 championship leaders equal on points, and after testing, we've seen 1 fastest and 1 down in about 13th place. It's going to be interesting to see whether they're still that close at the end of today. In terms of a circuit, we seem to be getting narrower every week. We had Daytona first, a fast speedway there. Last week, we were narrowing it down, and then this week we're on to Montreal. It's Hockenheim, sort of like, the wall's a bit closer than Daytona, and now we've got the tight sort of twisty circuit of Montreal.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be that way. Obviously, the walls are closing in, as they would say, as we always go out for the qualifying sector. So, as you said there, Dave, we've got the top 2 of the championship at the moment that are equal on points. A bit of a yeah, there you go. So the champion stands so far. So we've got Sven Newland and Bogdan Moldovan at 89 points respectively. So Bogdan got first place in the first round. Sven was in the 4th in the first. In the second round, Sven, obviously, as we saw, had an excellent ride, literally led from the flag and just extended his lead throughout the race. And Bogdan came in 4th. So roles reversal for race 1 and 2 there, where we have Carl Winkler currently at 79 points, so 10 points off the leader, with Leon Penn nipping at his heels on 77 points with Malcolm Palic at 69. So it's all quite close from third, certainly down to 7th place at the moment. So everything to play for in the championship there, as we see Richard Kofenku on 56. So they're all quite close at the top of the field within the pro season. And I suppose, Dave, that's what we come to expect when we look at the championships, these being pro drivers, and to actually get into this race or into this season, you need to be 2.2k iRacing. So we're certainly seeing a high standard of racing in the first 2 rounds of this championship.
Exactly. You know, these drivers know what they're doing in this series, and that's why if we, you know, you just gone through the points, but if you look at positions, you know, we've got 2 drivers who've got 1st and 4th at the top of the table, and everybody else has sort of had a good round and an average round, or a good round and a bad round. So, for example, you got Penn, who's 4th in the championship. He's had 2nd and an 8th. Now, he will probably want to drop that 8 at the end of the season if he can. So, yeah, it just shows that one good result could just push you up that championship table and suddenly into championship contention. As we can see so far, Minot's popped the fastest time in so far, ahead of Moldovan, who's, you know, needing to find a bit of pace after a practice session. So we just see a driver pulling off to the side there. But everybody just starting to put some sort of pace laps in before they really push hard towards the end of this session.
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously we're looking, I reckon, in a time of around the 142s, low 142s for pole position. So obviously just warming up their tyres before they start their proper lap. But talking about the championship, obviously looking at the championship point, Gaten Anger, we would expect to see him right at the top of the field, considering he is Mr. Consistent through seasons 1 and 2 of the GT Trophy seasons that we had. But you know, the first round that he had in Daytona was probably one to forget to him. So didn't quite finish the race, got 2 first lap incidences that put him right down the field. Obviously the drivers do get 1 fast repair within this series, so all is not lost if we have one incident, get back repair, but if you get out and then have another incident, then pretty much your race is done. But you know, it was a bit strange that he didn't actually come out, because if you're within 3 laps of the leader, you still score points, so it's still, you know, within your best interest to try and finish the race. But I suppose he thought, with his, you know, previous experience and always fighting for the top half of the grid, he thought, well, I'll take this one as my drop round. But what that does do, Dave, is it puts under a lot of pressure for the remaining 8 rounds that we had in the season.
It certainly does. If you're banking on a drop round that early on in the season, it certainly puts the pressure on. And currently, round 2, got on the podium with a very good drive at Hockenheim, and I think he was 10th quickest, somewhere around there, in the practice session we just had before this qualifying session. So he has the pace, it's just whether he can bring it out as he goes into 10th at the moment, just ahead of Moldovan, who seems to be struggling around this Montreal circuit.
Yeah, it certainly seems to be the way. As we saw in practice, Sven Newman was about 0.6 of a second faster than any other driver on the track. Obviously, he hasn't put a flying lap in yet, because we can't see him on the timing board at the moment. But obviously, watching him shoot up when he puts a lap in around the circuit seems to be very quick. And I think that's the thing of this series. You know, you need to get to the front of the qualifying grid to start up at the front of the grid to try and save yourself from the carnage that normally ensues mid-pack. And I think obviously that's what happened to Gaten Anger in the first round. I think he qualified round about 15th place or something like that, if I can remember rightly, in Daytona. So he was right in the melee of the middle pack, and obviously the first couple of corners where all the drivers are bunched up, and unfortunately paid the price for that. round 2 at Interlagos, obviously he was 10th, so a little bit further up the grid, and managed to get himself up to 3rd place. But at the moment, Sven Newman certainly seems to be the man to watch and beat in this series at the moment. He came 4th in the first round in Daytona, but was literally about 2/10 behind 1st place on that. So there was a 3-car wide going over the line with Sven literally just behind the field, and that was only really down to the pit stop strategy that they had in Daytona, Dave, that sort of cost him the race in race 1. So it seemed to got that sorted in race 2, and obviously he just drove away from the field from the start.
He was absolutely dominant around Hockenheim, and the team seemed to have the perfect strategy when they had his teammate Winkler alongside him on the grid. I'm trying to see if Winkler's on the grid at the moment. Can't see him there, but it's currently Leon Penn who's got within 3/10 of him, which is closer than anybody did in practice. And I think Penn could do a good race here today. If he has a good one, he'll push himself right into championship contention, only 12 points off the lead currently, as we see John Derrick pop up into 3rd. He's also looking to keep going after his 5th place at Hockenheim.
Yeah, so we currently have 3.5 minutes left of this qualifying period. Current positions are Sven Newman 1st, Leon Penn 2nd, Jay Derrick 3rd, Brandon Togoni in 4th, C Beats in 5th, Leon Ward in 6th, Michael Palic in 7th, and Florent Bier in 8th. Grinstad 9th, and Kofenku is in the top 10. But I'm pretty sure this is all going to sort of change in the last 2 minutes of this qualifying. So we have a 60-minute race after this, as we watch there. Richard Kofenku obviously getting a little bit squirrely coming out of what is going to be the tight part of the circuits. Turns 3 and 4. So you got 1, 2, 3, and 4 that are obviously the tight corners on this circuit, Dave. I think we might see a few incidents there, and obviously, the world famous Wall of Championships, as we can see there. I'm pretty sure that we're going to have some incidents there with cars trying to go too wide coming down the Casino Straight.
There's many walls you can hit around Canada. You speak about the first 4 corners on this circuit. You look back to sort of Formula 1, and you had the 98 start where we had cars barrel rolling and two drivers not even getting through either start. And then further round, if you just clip one of them walls through 3, 4, 5, 6, you've got nowhere to go. You'll end up in the wall, and it'll be the end of your race. So being mid-pack at the start of this race will be crucial. And at the moment, Moldovan is going to be in that mid-pack. He's currently 13th, 8/10 off the pace. I think he's gone back out again for one last run if he'll get his lap in. Yeah, he's on an out lap at the moment. Down there with Gaten Anger. So those two both need a big lap on this last chance in qualifying.
Yeah, definitely. Unusual to see those two championship contenders down there. Moldovan in 13th and Gaten Anger in 15th. But as you can see, sort of from the qualifying times, everyone down to 16th place is within a second of the leader. So, it just shows how quick these drivers are. And, the differences between probably having a pro-only season is that the drivers don't have to worry about the AM drivers on track that sometimes slow them down. They can literally go full pelt, knowing that the cars around them are of a high iRacing, so therefore should have a good racecraft ethic when it comes to racing. But when you see that red mist, I think it comes into play, and I think this is one of them circuits that you can see that red mist, and certainly coming down the Casino Straight going into the turns 13 and 14 for the Wall of Champions is that I'm going to expect to see 2-car wide going into there, and unfortunately it never really pays off very well if you do that. As you can see there, the curbs are quite high going around them corners, so therefore if you're going to run, as we see, who was that? Was that Sven? Look at the back there, just showing us a prime example of what can happen in the Wall of Champions there, going into the first straight, into the last 2 corners, sorry. But Yeah, it's all there as we run out of qualifying. So at the moment, I think we can get the last ones. Brandon Zaboni manages to get up third place with 133.5. So nobody actually got down to the 132s, but low 133s seems to be the pole position.
Yeah, a great lap in there by John Derrick as well to jump up into second place. We mentioned him earlier, and we're just waiting for Moldovan to come across the line, but he's not going to improve, and he's going to be stuck down in 13th at this start. I know we keep mentioning him, but being equal championship leader, we won't expect him to be there, but just not clicking with this Montreal circuit. So that's the last of the drivers coming into the pit lane, and it is Newman on pole for a second time.
Yeah, great race, and obviously carry on his form from Interlagos in round 2 over to round 3 to the Circuit de Villeneuve and getting the pole position. So as we wait for the drivers to all start gridding up, just a quick shout out to our sponsors of Virtual Racing School, SDK Gaming and Apex Racing Academy. There's a bit of a difference on the prizes. Actually, the 10 top drivers in the championship all receive prizes of varying degrees, but I don't think we've ever had one in Apex Racing TV or ARL League where we've had 10 drivers in the same class getting prizes, and obviously there's a trophy as well for the first, second and third of the team championship. So as we look at the grid at the moment, so we see Sven Newman here on first place, John Derrick in second, Brandon Taboni in third, Leon Penn in fourth, Richard Kufenku fifth, Chris Beats in sixth, Lewis Ward seventh, Hankon Grebstad in eighth, Michael Palic in ninth, Dominic Engel 10th, Florin Beer 11th, and Otto Helter in 12th. Bogdan Moldovan in 13th place, Kurt Calamari in 14th, Gaten Hanger in 15th, Kieran Smart 16th, Austin Hereford in 17th, Ronald Grossman 18th, Matthias Beer 19th, Richard Watkins 20th, Casper Sorensen 21st, Callum Galton in 22nd, Luke Reimer 23rd, Dennis Meiser in 24th. Last but not least, we got Thomas Minot in 25th place. So looks like we haven't got any pit lane starters, so not many penalties coming out of thingies. So are you going to give me a prediction, Dave, of who you think might win this race?
Well, I think it's hard to look past Sven Newman at the moment with the form he's on, but he hasn't got the backup of his teammate. I did not see Carl Winkler on that grid anywhere, so he's going to have to do it lonesome this time and won't have that backup on the opening lap. But I'm going to go for Penn. I think he was pretty quick in testing. He's popped himself high up on the grid, and I think he'll be able to take advantage once the race begins.
Yeah, definitely. As we see them all lining up down the Casino Straight. So the short outlap at the moment. So it's going to be a rolling start into this race, 60 minutes long with a mandatory pit stop. So pit stop strategies, as we've seen in the previous 2 rounds, Dave, have been quite important.
Crucially important. And, we might see somebody like Moldovan go for an early stop and try and use pace, but doesn't seem to have that single lap pace to use. It's not like he's been at the top of the time sheets all through practice. So will we see like that kind of strategy work? I'm not sure. So let's see what happens as they head towards the Wall of Champions for the start of this race.
Yeah, definitely. So we've got Core Sim Racing in first place, Core Sim Racing in fourth place with Leon and Penn as they come down to the start grid. So it's all under Sven Newman's control where he goes, and I think he has already gone. So got a really good jump there over John Derrick. So a little bit of a gap. So the front 3 actually got away really cleanly with 4th and 5th sort of battling out, but obviously keeping it clean. So it'll be interesting to see if we all get the cars through this first section of drivers. So all pretty clean actually on the first lap. So every driver through on here. The only real big move, the only mover at the top of the field is Richard Kofenku in 4th place. But as we are at the moment, Sven Newman in 1st, John Derrick in 2nd, Brandon Taboni 3rd, Richard Kofenku moved up 1 place to 4th, and Leon Penn currently in 5th place. So all just basically warming up their tyres at the moment, Dave, and getting the feel for the track in there. Or as we see a big lunge there going in, and Gaten Anger unfortunately gets spun on the first lap there. Oh no, coming into that. It's easy to do on that bit. You know, that's a prime spot for people trying to get up that inside spot on that lap. So, you know, Gaten Anger unfortunately again gets a hit and currently flying in 25th place as we look at a replay here. So Gaten Anger coming up to turn number 6 in the field, coming in and unfortunately getting tapped on the inside. I'm not sure who that was. Sure who that was behind him who tapped it, but obviously that's a common mistake or a common crash that we're actually going to see coming around this Canada track.
Yeah, to be honest, I think Anger could have left a little bit more room there, you know, being the first lap and him needing a result. But you never know, he's got a bit of pace today, so if he can catch up with the back of the field, play a bit of pit strategy, we might just see him near the top end later on in the race as we look at Hakon Gribstad, who has the best position of 9th this season. Last time out in Hockenheim didn't quite go to plan. I think he was caught up in an accident near the start of the race and just didn't recover. But he's currently running 8th, looking quite sharp behind Lewis Ward. But it's Sven Newman who continues to lead, and he hasn't been headed since the start of round 2 so far.
Yeah, pretty much led every lap, I think, from round 2 in Interlagos. So he's carrying on his form. But obviously, as we saw at the race number 2, it was like a procession for the first sort of like 10-15 minutes with slight little moves made. But then when we get into this pit stop realms, that's where we see the difference in tactic. And we almost see the field start splintering from that effect, and that's where we see these little mini battles that start producing and the gaps producing. So I'm sort of expecting the first 10-15 minutes of this race is almost to be like a procession with the cars just following on behind each other. You know, the only one who's not got the slipstream effect is Sven at the front of the field. But because he's about 0.6, 0.7 seconds ahead of second place can't really capitalise on that, as we see him all like a big procession going down the Casino Straight coming into the Wall of Champions turn. So we haven't had anyone at the moment. So it might be a good opportunity just to look at a few of the liveries, Dave, and see some of the effort that the guys come as we see Florian Beer's very very abstract coloured car.
Yeah, he's chucked a couple of loads of paint over that. And while I just mentioned it, second round was Interlagos. I've been saying Hockenheim all night. Don't know why I've been doing that. But yeah, some of the liveries are, you know, they've put a lot of effort into these, and they're here to try and not get them damaged. As we're watching Moldovan back in 15 in the yellow, black and blue BMW, and doesn't see, well, he's lost 2 positions off the start and seems to be settling in nicely, but he's got Ronald Grossman just behind him and Kieran Smart just in front, so I'm not sure what he's sort of thinking to do now. He's probably in 2 minds whether to pit early and all things like that, but as you say, the race has sort of settled down now, and the biggest mover on the opening lap seems to be Callum Garton, who was in 19th, as we see Casper Sorensen going for a move into the hairpin on the Lamborghini. Oh no, it's Richard Watkins going past Sorensen, sorry, and Luke Rittmer is having a look now to get past Sorensen as well as they head down towards the Wall of Champions.
Yeah, it's interesting mix of cars that we've got here, as we see a really good shot there of the Casino Straight. How long it is, it's a real long corner. You can see the tightness of the turn coming into the last 2 turns into the Wall of Champions. You can see the cars sort of getting in unsettled, but it's important to get that good run out of that corner to be able to get you the speed coming down the start-finish straight. So quite a vital corner to get right, but as we've seen many times before in many of the road races and Grand Prix that we've seen in here, you know, that wall can bite back really hard, and if you go offline and you do hit that wall, that's literally your race going to be over, and unfortunately you probably have to tow back to the pits to obviously repair, which would be a very long time around this track as we're currently watching Marco Pallet. So, you know, if we look at the timings, you know, all the way down pretty much to position 18th. It's only 12 seconds behind the leader, so they're all still in a big, long train at the moment. Behind there's a little bit of a gap going back, and then obviously we've got Gate and Anger currently still sat in 25th position, 20 seconds off the leader at the moment. So it's going to be another very difficult race, and you know, like we said at the start, he's already had his drop round, so he can't afford to have another non-finish, or else that will be his sort of championship season almost ended before it even begins in the first season really of the GT Trophy Pro. Obviously, this is the third GT Trophy season, but this is the first one of the pro standings only. Just obviously for you AM drivers out there as well, is that don't worry, we haven't forgot about you. The next after this season we'll be having a GT Pro AM season, so that'll be for anybody under the 2.2k iRating, so splitting the fields up in the GT Trophy with pros and AMs, as we currently watch Kieran Smart here in P14. So getting little bits of gaps now starting to form in the field, but we're getting big clumps of cars just following the trains really, but nothing really anything major up to P18. There's still only 13 seconds behind the leader, so all still very much following each other, and I expect this to happen until we start getting into the realms of say 25 minutes, looking at the start of the pit stop strategy. So it'll be interesting to see if the likes of Moldovan, who's currently in P15, and even Garton in 19th, who's normally quite a quick driver as well, Dave. You know, he seems to be down the bottom end or the wrong end of the field from where we normally see him. So maybe they'll have to do something different in the pit stop strategies.
Yeah, they'll have to do something because they're not moving up the field as they may have expected. Garton, I think, had a poor qualifying start, and he's moved up 3 positions currently. One of them, obviously, due to Anger, who is now caught onto the back of the pack. He's just 3 seconds from 23rd. So we'll see how much progress he can make before he gets on to his pit strategy. Maybe when he gets a bit further upfield, he'll just sort of pull it back, as we're watching Paluch and the number 73 of Gribstad side by side into turn 1, and he's going to will he make that move? This corner does allow a little bit of sort of side by side because you can fight back on the exit, and Anger's in the pits. So there we go, he's decided he's caught the pack, and it's time to get the pit stop out the way with, as we see a spin there for Hereford.
Yeah, I think if he's going in the pits this early, he'll certainly have to stop again at the end of the splash and dash. But as we see here, a replay of Hereford coming down into turn 1. So taking that inside line, but obviously you need to make sure you cut that speed off a little bit, or else you do that. So if you're car by car, side by side on the cars, you know, Hereford going into that corner a little bit too hard in the inside line. You really need to scrub your speed to be able to make that inside. So Gate and Anger there, obviously looks like he's probably already taken his fast repair, and this might be him out of the race here already at this early stage, only 9 minutes in. So I think his championship hopes have literally just ran out the door there. I think what is interesting, Dave, in this race, so if we analyse the first 2 races, we had a sort of BMW dominance at the top of the field. Round 3 seems to be a bit of difference. I don't know if we can get the car makers up, Dennis, on the overlay just to have a look, because as we can see here, a little bit of a mix-up here. So we have got a BMW leading this, but we've now got a Lamborghini in second place, and then we've got Ferraris so we've got five in the top 10 at the moment, only 3 BMWs and 2 Lamborghinis. So it's nice to see the other cars starting to fight back on what was the BMW dominance in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah, the wide open tracks of Interlagos and Daytona will allow the BMW to stretch its legs around the high-speed banking and things like that, whereas this tight, twisty nature will suit the Porsche. The Porsche, never known for its outright speed in a straight line, probably more to do with its shape. It's not the most aerodynamic car in the world, but it certainly can shift through the corners, and that's why we're probably seeing 5 out of the top 10 are all Porsches, but none of them are in the top 3. So we have the two BMWs and the Lamborghini, which John Derrick is doing a brilliant job with at the moment, keeping clear of Brandon Tabone, as Richard Gafencu is now lining up Tabone just close behind and probably going to start having a look for a move here. He doesn't want to get stuck behind him too long because you get very fixated on the driver in front if you catch somebody, and then you end up doing their pace even though you're being quicker. So I think he'll want to... It's always about getting to the driver and getting past them quickly. It's always the key, as we now see Grossman and Sorensen still fighting it out.
You can see the compromise in speed now. I mean, obviously the car behind these ones, Sorensen, I think it is, in car there in 19th place. No, Garton, you can see the overspeed. The front and two went too wide into the last two corners. And Garton got a massive overspeed coming out there because he took the correct line, whereas the other two compromised their lines going through the Wall of Champions. And I suppose that's one of the big effects when you actually try to do a pass going into the World Championship. If you don't get that done before the corner and line yourself up for the line, you can lose a lot of speed coming down into the first base. So Callum Garton there obviously getting one place over there, and he's right behind at the moment Sorensen in 17th place. So these guys all fighting it out. As you were saying, interesting you were saying about the cars. I mean, I drove the Lamborghini in the first series of this championship. The Lamborghini, I think, is one of them all-round cars, so it's got a bit of everything. It's quite good on the corners, quite good on the straights. You have the BMW that has the grunt on the straights. Oh, as we see a big off there as Dominic Engel currently in 10th place, coming down into turn 10, which is obviously a really bad one for if you're braking too late on that corner, as we see a replay here coming down this corner. So he's not got anyone around him, so it looks like a self-mistake coming in. Oh, wait a minute. Car just getting in front of him. I think that was Bogdan, other man that was in front.
It was Palucci.
Palucci in front of him. Yeah, Palucci in front of him, unfortunately cutting across his line, hitting into, and we see the aftermath of somebody cutting him up.
Newman's made a mistake, sorry. This is John Derrick, who has just taken the lead of the race, and has Newman made a mistake? So he did have a bit of a gap, and that looks like he's letting him through. Not sure what's happened. Did he have a slowdown possibly? But John Derrick now leads this race in the Lamborghini, and Newman has finally lost the lead after leading all the laps of round 2 and all of the race so far, and now he's into the clutches of Tabone and Gafencu.
Yeah, I think that was definitely a slowdown. Be interesting to see him going around the Wall of Champions there to see if he actually did get offline, because you can get a slowdown there if you obviously cut that corner a little bit too much. And it seems like that from obviously being 0.7 of a second in the head and now nearly a second behind John Derrick in first place. So first time we've had a Lamborghini lead in the GT Pro Series, and it's currently John Derrick at the moment 0.9 of a second ahead. So you know, a bit of competition here for Sven, but we know that Sven's a fast driver, as we're currently watching still the fight for 17th place with Sorensen, Garton in 18th, Grossman just behind him, battling it out with Reimer in 20th place. But as we see Garton all over the back, so it looks like we may have another 2x2 wide going into the last two corners of the Wall of Championship. Is Sorensen going to duck out? Yeah, so Sorensen just ducked out there, managed to let Garton through, so they didn't go 2x2 wide into the last two corners for the Wall of Champions. So, you know, role reversal now. So Gayton is now currently in P17, so managed to get past the little group that he was in head of. So head in that group now, and be interesting to see if he now starts stretching his legs and start breaking away to try and get up to Matthias Beer in front of him, who's currently 4 seconds ahead of him. So there's a bit of a gap for him to overcome to get in, as we've got Luke Reimer all over the back of Grossman coming down into turn number 7. Quite a thing is we see different lines through there, so the guys trying to take that inside corner, but obviously getting the car unsettled going through there to try and get that decent run coming down here. So there is sort of like mini straights down here where you can make real differences, Dave.
There is, and that was absolutely textbook, not just by Garton, but by Sorensen. He knew if he went side by side through that chicane, he was going to lose out to more people. So you've got to sort of let him go. Is that Sorensen going slowly in the number?
Yes, it
in
is.
the number 12? Yes, it is. Sorensen going slowly down to a hairpin. I don't know if he got a slow down, but I didn't see him run wide. He's back up to speed now, and disappointing news, Gaten Anger is out. He's 5 laps down now in the pits and out next to his name, and he hasn't returned to the track. So that is disappointing for his championship challenge. I wouldn't say it's over, but it's not exactly what he's looking for, as we now look at Gribstad trying to hold off Paluch. As we got a car in the wall, that is the number 57 of Luke Reimer, and he looks like he got involved with Grossman there into the inside of the wall of champions.
Yeah, textbook thing we were saying here. So let's have a look. So trying to take it too much, took too much like Urban Orr, picked up on the car in front of him, and unfortunately came out. But those two were battling quite hard throughout the race on that, and unfortunately, as we saw in the overhead shot there, he actually clipped that inside. As we see, Sven Newman gone down to 5th place, so he's falling down the field at the moment, Dave. And Brandon Taboni currently in 2nd, Richard Kofenko in 3rd, Leon Penn, your choice for the win, currently in front of Newman in 4th, and Newman in 5th. So in the space of a couple of laps, Newman's fallen from 1st place all the way down to 5th place. So I think that's the pressure he's putting on himself now. He's thinking, I need to make sure I get back to the front of this field, and it seems like he's picking up slow down penalties, which is really affecting him during this race.
Yeah, quite possibly. I'm just having a look at the last lap times, and he was the quickest guy in the field on that last lap. So it seems like it may have just been one mistake here or there, as he's now under pressure from the Lamborghini Chris beats. Chris, who finished 3rd in round 1 but had a disappointing time in Interlagos, is back on the pace here in Montreal. But yeah, no, the pace is there for Newman. It's just where the odd mistake seems to be pushing him back. As we now look at Bogdan Moldovan, who is now moving forward slightly. He's up into 13th. I think, personally, if I was him, with the pace we've seen from him, he'll be looking to try and get a top 10 out of this, which is obviously achievable because the multicoloured car you're just seeing go at the front of his pack is Florian Beer in 10th. So that's perfectly achievable, but anywhere further than that, another 5-second gap, and no disrespect to him, his pace hasn't been as explosive as the opening 2 rounds. So top 10 will be, I think, a success for Bogdan here today. But you never know with pit stops whether he might just be able to creep that little bit further forward, as we now see Gribstad still fighting away. This is a battle he would have to go and catch 5 seconds to catch up to. And they're not fighting hard enough for him to be able to gain that distance in a short amount of time. But obviously we still have 40 minutes of this race to go.
Yeah, it definitely is. We're watching Grimstad and Palic 8th and 9th at the moment, just following each other around through the Wall of Championships, ending another lap, going on to another. So 19 minutes down in the championship, or in this round. Currently, John Derrick is leading by 1.9 seconds over Brandon Toponi in 2nd, Richard Kofenko in 3rd, 2.4 seconds behind him. So a bit of a split between 1, 2 and 3, with Leon Penn currently about 2 seconds behind Richard Kofenko. So we're starting to see the little gaps that start forming in the field now, and this is where you start seeing your pockets. We got the front end of the field all the way down to Palic, 9 seconds. Then we've got a little bit of a gap to Florian Beer in 10th, who's 14 seconds behind that. And then there's a load of cars behind there. And then we have another gap around about 17th place to Garton, who's 5 seconds behind Calamari. So, you get in these 3 distinct pockets within the field at the moment, and we're starting now, another 10 minutes between now and between 20 and 30 we'll probably start seeing the cars, and I would expect to start see the first ones to try to do that undercut around about 23 to 28 minutes to get in. But when you get into those realms, you're probably looking at fuel saving towards the end of the race. But we've certainly seen it paid off in the first 2 races, doing that undercut. and obviously the overcut as well from the normal where you would expect it as we watch a replay here.
This is Richard Watkins going down into turn 1. Yeah, and he just loses a back end, catches it quite nicely, and continues on round turn 2 with his 2nd place. 20th place. But I'm just noticing there's a mistake there by Leon Penn. Sven Newman's got past. Here comes Chris Beats in a Lamborghini up into 4th place. There must have been a mistake by Penn through turns 3 and 4. And now he's got to try and fight off Lewis Ward, or he'll be at the back of this pack after being in 4th and looking quite in control of it for that little moment of time. We've got Ward all over the back of Penn like a cheap suit, and he'll be looking to take advantage of all those little mistakes that happen just in front of him.
Sven Newman's got to the front of his little pack now, so he's got a little bit of a gap behind him, not a massive gap, but nothing that he needs to keep looking behind him now. So it will be interesting to see if whatever issues he had a couple of laps ago, he's put that behind him now and get on. So he's got 3 seconds to 3rd place in front of him as we watch a battle here for 2nd place between Brandon Taifoni and Richard Kofenko, as Richard takes the outside line. Obviously tried to get Taboni, he was doing a bit of a defensive move on the inside, but Richard Kofenko had a lot of overspeed coming in there and managed to get the pass done before turns 14 and 15 coming into the wall of champions. So, you know, a bit of a change for P2 now, Richard Kofenko in 2nd, but I'm pretty sure that them and Talboni will be fighting it out. But as we saw in the sort of first round, when you get these drivers fighting it constantly, that's going to bring Sven Newman back into it, and that's exactly what we saw in Daytona. Just a big shout out to one of our sponsors, Virtual Racing School. Do you want to improve your on-track performance? Then please head over to virtualracingschool.com, where they have 50 plus data packs for road and oval racing, setups, track guides, data analysis software, and one-to-one coaching. So if you want to improve your iRacing experience and get up to the leagues where we're seeing at the moment, then please head over to virtualracingschool.com, where they'll be able to help you progress your career in the iRacing world. So as we watch at the moment, Bogdan Moldovan in 13th place at the moment. It's a bit, although we're currently on the 3rd round, you know, we're used to him being at the front of the field and trying to pick, as we see there, Ronald Grossman doing a excellent fast and furious spin round impression there, going around in turn number 5 on the track. So they're really good. But yeah, you know, are we putting too much pressure on certain guys, because they're not always going to be good at every single track that we hit? And I think that's probably the really good thing with having the drop round, Dave, is that, you know, if you're not very good at one of the tracks, then you've got that opportunity to just try your best on it, see where you can, and it's not the end of the world, because you do have that obviously facility of a drop round.
You hit the nail on the head there. You know, with the drop round, it does just allow you that little bit of breathing space, and I think drivers put pressure on themselves as it is, and then if you've finished in the top 4 for the first 2 rounds, automatically people will put championship favourites label on you, and once that label goes on you, some drivers can take it and some drivers just wane a little bit from it. I've seen it in karting, even in British Championships in karting. Drivers just waver under that pressure, and hopefully this is just one of them circuits that Bogdan just doesn't get on with, and we'll see him back right at the very front. But at least Newman isn't running away with this race. We've still got John Derrick at the front of this race. Derrick, who's 8th in the championship, this will be a huge boost to his title challenge after he got the fastest lap in round 1 and 5th in round 2. But he seems to be controlling it at the moment. He's not trying to extend that gap too far. Maybe a little bit of fuel saving at the moment. You can see at the bottom, only edging that gap out a little bit at a time. And that's probably more because Kofenko's having to defend slightly from Tabone, as we can now see Thomas Minot off the track. Thomas down in 23rd, and the last of the runners. That looks like it's just the chicane before the hairpin. He was just chasing down Ronald Grossman and just catches the grass on the entry, swings it round. Very easy to do on these sort of old style circuits. Speaking of Grossman, Luke Reimer, who got caught up with Grossman's slide at the Wall of Champions, looks to be out of the race. He is now 6 laps down, so we've got 2 retirements, 23 still running, and we continue to look at Paulich, who he's got ahead of Lewis Ward. Actually, I was about to say he was stuck behind Gribstad, but he's got ahead of Gribstad now, and doesn't have to stay at the rear of that Porsche. We're possibly going to see where he did it here. Here we go, out of the Wall of Champions, got a much better run, headed down to turn 1, decided he was fed up of looking at the back of that Porsche. He's been doing so since lap 1, finally gets a run, and Gribstad, I think he's going to be sensible here. Yeah, just lets him go, knows we've got much more of a race to go. It's not the final lap now, and he just wants a good result and maybe can follow Paulich up to Lewis Ward and Leon Penn.
Yeah, definitely, and it pays. And obviously, you mentioned there about John Derrick being at the front of the race. Obviously, 2.4 seconds ahead of Richard Kofenko at the moment, and we pretty much saw it the same in the last race with Sven Newman being at the front, and the second and third place guys were in a heated battle between themselves. Obviously, got themselves caught up. Guys behind picked up, as we see Matthias Beer coming into the pit. So the first one, actually, I'm quite surprised we haven't seen more before this, but this is certainly be his one stop for the race. So trying that undercut over the rest of the field. So we'll sort of see and where he comes out after all the pit rounds to see if he's got any big gainers. But certainly, you know, if you're in one of these long trains and you feel you can go faster, then, you know, it makes sense to come into the pits early to fuel up, which will then hopefully give you the free air when you're coming out. You obviously don't get the slipstream, so you lose that effect, but if you feel that you're faster than the train of cars that you're currently in, ultimately you are going to be faster times, and you may be able to jump them in the pit stop rounds, as we see Matthias Beer coming out of the pit exit at the moment. So he's the first one at the moment that's come in for his pit stop. So we'll expect to start seeing a big raft of cars coming in, and as we come to expect normally with Matthias Beer's paint jobs, it's another very psychedelic. I think they called him the Austin Powers of the iRacing world with his car paints that he's had in the future. So good to see him back into the ARL leagues and his brightly coloured paint that he's obviously rubbing off to his teammates, as well as Bogdan currently in P13 at the moment. So Leon Penn coming in from one of the front runners into the pit lane. So the second one in at the moment, trying to get that undercut over the rest of the field that he was in. So he was obviously fighting out with Sven Newman and Chris Beats in 4th and 5th. So it'll be interesting to see as we now start seeing a lot more cars coming into the pits.
Yeah, that's right. Moldovan and Engel also joining them, so it'd be interesting to see where he comes out and what pace he has after that. But you're on about the queue of cars. It all depends on the driver's preference. I know, for example, myself on iRacing, I don't really like the qualifying where you haven't got any other cars on track, because for that one lap pace, it's a bit like a motorbike race. I like to follow somebody and chase them down, and it just gives me that little bit extra. So being in the queue, sometimes if you haven't generally got the pace but the guy in front has, it can help you to stay in that queue. But if you feel like you're quicker, like obviously Bogdan Moldovan must do because he's pitted early to get out of the train, then it'll be interesting to see whether he has that outright pace in clear air. As we watch Kieran Smart catching up to the back of the Porsche of Hitler, and we'll see if anybody pits this lap, because sometimes you get these little groups who pit first and then people want to see 1 or 2 laps, see how the gap develops, and I don't think we've had any of the top 9 coming into the pits this time by, they've all continued, but we can now see that gap between second and third has just stretched out, with Newman now closing in onto Bone for that final podium position.
Yeah, definitely. So the pit stop times are taking around about 54 seconds on average that we can see the drivers. It's quite amazing coming out of that corner. We're just seeing how close they get to the wall on that right-hand side. They literally must shave that wall and must have a really decent paint job on that wall, with all the paint that's probably taken off the cars and little films of paint that it takes off every time a car comes back. You can just see how close they are to that wall to try and maximise that speed out of that corner. And this is always this one here is a very vital corner, so you need to be quick through here, which you can be, but obviously if you're too quick, which I think that's where probably Sven got his slow down penalty for coming out of that S's. If you overdo it, you can, as we saw before, we saw a car going on the grass on the left hand side and the other Saturday car, and you can spin, which was the only Mercedes of mine not in the race, the lone Mercedes, as we saw in the replay earlier on. Or you try to go in too hot and you sort of cut the second half of the chicane, and that's where you get your slow down penalty. So it's quite vital that that you get that corner right to sort of maximise the speed as the leader comes into the pit lane, along with Sven Newman in third place. So a change of lead at the moment in the race with Richard Kofenko in first place.
Yeah, the two of the top four into the pits. Gribstad following from 8th. I'm just watching the pace of Leon Penn. He did a 2:02 outlap, Moldovan 2:03 outlap, and then they were the quickest outlaps I've seen so far. So it'd be interesting to see if their first fast lap pace is any improvement on what they've been doing previously. Moldovan actually got into 34.5s during his time in that queue. As we see, Callum Garton is also in the pits, but Richard Gavencu now leads as Derek leaves the pits and comes out in about 10th place, I think. Newman also leaving. He'll be a couple of places further back. Will he have any cars between him? No, he just gets out ahead of Dennis Meiser, which could be crucial for him getting out in that clear air. And here is Derek now stuck behind Richard Watkins. This could be a killer for his strategy.
Yeah, definitely, and that's the thing with going into the pits, is trying to make sure that you don't get in front. As we can see John Derek there getting past Watkins, and Watkins going out wide, obviously knowing that he was the first place car, getting wisely out of his way. So good sportsmanship there. He could have been battling with him, because they are obviously fighting for the current position on track, but obviously, as we've already seen, John Derek as post. But what was interesting there in the pit stops was Sven Newman was 1 second a lap slower than in his pit stop. Then it was a 55.4, and the rest of the field are doing like 54s. So it looks like he's maybe taken on a little bit more fuel than the rest of the drivers, but obviously paying the price of the second, as we see the big influx of car. Kofenko, Toboni, Beats, Ward, Powlish, Beer, Hatira and Smart all coming into the pit lane for their pit stop. So a big melee of cars now coming into the pit lane.
Yeah, every driver who was ahead of John Derek, who hadn't pitted, are now in the pits. So John Derek should retake the lead here. Yes, he does, as we see. I think that's Gavencu Gavencu just heading out of the pits. Will he beat him out? Oh, it's close there. That was not the gap beforehand. John Derek with his tyres up to temperature probably after that lap. So Gavencu has to take advantage of being this close while his tyres are coming up to temperature. A bit further back to Bone, beat out Newman. Chris Beats beat out Penn, who was on that undercut strategy, so it hasn't worked out for Leon Penn, who's still ahead of Lewis Ward. And I think the majority of drivers have now been in the pits.
Yeah, that's every car's now been in the pits. The last one was Thomas Minot, who is the one and only Mercedes driver in the field. So I feel sorry for him, so I'll give him a shout out. I was the only car in the GT3 that was using the Ford. Felt very lonely out there on track, being the only car, but good to see that all the classes of cars, apart from the Audi, being represented in this championship. So all but one being chosen, I believe, as we certainly see there. Exactly like you said, Dave. The distance between first and second before the round of pit stops was 2.4 seconds. It's now down to 0.5 of a second. So certainly the undercut hasn't worked on this track. And with the masses going in, they seem to be the ones that have profited out of the pit stop strategies. With Sven Newman at the moment currently sat in 4th place, 5 seconds behind the leader, 3 seconds behind Tarboni as we're on board with Matthias Beer currently in P14. Watching the battle between Moldovan and Smart in front of him as they go too wide into the World Championship. So if he gets this line right, he could take them both going down into the first corner. So he's right up next to Smart coming down the first corner as we see there. So we see the overspeed of the two cars going wide. Unfortunately, Matthias Beer has the outside line and has to concede to Smart coming down into turn 2. But you can certainly see from that, if you get two cars wide coming into last two corners, that will massively compromise your speed, as we saw the overspeed for Matthias Beer going down there at the first straight, but unfortunately not able to keep the speed up, as it is a relatively short straight down to turn 1.
Yeah, and you also have to get the right line into turn 1 because you've got that little kink just at the start line. I did notice there that Matthias Beer was actually missing his rear bumper, so he's been in the walls somewhere around the track. We'll just see it now. He's missing that rear bumper off the back of the 99, which is a shame because he's got a lovely paint job on it, but some marshal will have that as a nice little souvenir. But currently at the front, we still have John Derrick leading, Gavencu in second to Bone in third. A lot of curb there for John Derrick. Sometimes it works your way for that, sometimes it doesn't. It just depends with how it throws you back off. And actually, speaking about Matthias Beer and Callum Garton, both the biggest movers in the field with 5 places gained from their start position.
Yeah, so not the usual double figures of changes in this track. So all the drivers have upped the game for this round, and the movers and shakers within the field, they're not massive. Obviously, we've got the 2 cars that are out, so they will be massively down. But the rest of the field are only 1 or 2 places, a majority. Are 1 or 2 or 3 places above where they started, so it just shows you the importance of that first qualifying lap to get you into the position. Because certainly in this race, the movers and shakers are not as big as the previous rounds that we've been seeing. Just another shout out to one of our other sponsors, the Apex Racing Academy. They have 29 data packs for setups, track guides, weekly group coaching sessions, and it's fully integrated with VRS. So obviously, if you get VRS plus Apex Racing Academy, you have the complete package for setup guides and track guides for iRacing. Plus, they also have many more. Head over to apexracingac.com for more information on what they can offer you. So as we watch here at the moment, the battle for 8th place with Paulic and Grimstad. That's Grimstad and Beer actually for 9th and 10th. Paulic is just in front of them going through the Wall of Champions. So yeah, fighting it out, and Grimstad seems to be getting slightly picked off by the drivers that are around him. So he seems to sort of lose out as we watch Florian Beer trying to put it down the inside of the car going into turn 1. I think he'll get the inside line, but he might be a little bit slower as we see Grimstad getting the inside line for turn 2, so managing to keep that position at the moment. But we'll certainly, by having his nose poking out, Grimstad will be seeing that he's got a car that's fighting him quite hard for 9th place at the moment.
Yes, and I think Florian Beer has copied his teammate Matthias Beer and has not got a rear bumper. Either that or the BMW is looking a bit strange at the back there. Looks like he's missing it. But yeah, he's certainly... Sorry?
I think it's just a black one, I think.
Oh, it might be. Maybe it's my mistake, but maybe that's one part of the car that can't reach with a paintbrush, as we see.
Ran out of
Matthias Beer, yeah, they would do with the front end of that car. You can also see the day-glow yellow Porsche of Dominic Engel. He's lost 5 positions in this race. We're right on board with him now. He had a spin earlier on. I think we saw him off on the grass. Can't quite remember where, but he's deep on the brakes there and almost clatters the back of Beer. Don't put them 2 paint jobs together. We won't miss that in the dark. But Moldovan moved ahead of Smart at the front of his queue and doesn't seem to be pulling away and doesn't seem to be really catching up with Otto just ahead in the Porsche. So is that top 10 going to be just a bit too far from Moldovan? It could be today. And his championship rivals are all, I think, apart from obviously Winkler, who's not in the race, we've got Newman, Penn, Howlich, Tabone, Betts, Derrick, Gafencu, top 9 in the championship, all in the top 10, scoring good points. So it's not what Moldovan needs to see, but some of them have had their sort of duff round, as we could call it, and the result they might want to drop at the end of the year already. So I don't think he'll be too disappointed at the end of this race, as we now see Sven Newman all over the back of Brandon Tabone, trying to get back onto that podium. His pace since his pit stop has been much better as he goes deep on the brakes into the hairpin and tries to run it out onto Casino Straight. That little kink through the corner. This used to be a sweeping number of curves back in 1995, I believe, and they changed it after the death of Ayrton Senna at Imola, and now you've got a lovely overtaking straight, but Sven Newman unable to take advantage of it. But there's the top 4 all in your picture, as the closest battle is Tabone and Newman, with the Chris Beats, Penn, Ward battle, all trying to just catch his battle up if they keep fighting too hard.
Yeah, currently 4 seconds behind, so they have got a little bit of time over, but as we can see there's Sven Newman all over the back of Taboni at the moment. So the last lap time was a 1:34.7 for Taboni and a 1:34.5 for Newman. So Newman 2 tenths quicker, but obviously has got that slipstream effect. Just a big shout out to all our viewers watching on YouTube. You know, thank you very much for joining us. And if you're liking what you see, please leave us a like on the stream, and also subscribe. You know, over here on Apex Racing TV, we almost cater for every single car, and I think we have. So we have the GT3s is currently watching on a Tuesday. Tomorrow we have the brand new Radical series starting, so there's still opportunity to gain into that league if you want to, by heading over to apexracingleague.com to sign up for the start of that league tomorrow, which is in Suzuka. Thursdays we have NASCAR trucks. Fridays we currently have the amazing Super Truck series, which if you've not watched that, then please watch the last couple of ones back. You will not be disappointed on them. On Saturdays we have the F3 cars, and then on Sundays we have the GTE cars. So you know, we pretty much cater for everything. And Formula V is on Monday. We also have Rallycross on Apex Racing TV, so please head over to Apex Racing TV schedules to see all the upcoming series and the time. So pretty much something there to cater for everyone. So big shout out to Kira from Art. I hope you're looking forward to this and you're enjoying the race, mate. And if you want to leave a comment in the YouTube channel, please do, and we'll try to discuss anything you bring up. So yeah, as we currently watch at the moment, the battle for third with Brandon Taboni and Sven Newman in 4th place.
Yes, Fallon Beer has fallen down the order massively. He was in that battle with Engel, I think he was at one point, but he's just fallen back down to the bottom of the field. Thomas Minot in the Mercedes has gone past him, so I'm not sure. It looks like he may have retired actually, because he's not moving anywhere on the circuit. His lap timer is staying exactly the same as we carry on watching position 3rd and 4th, Tabone and Newman. It's the closest battle on the circuit at the moment, just ahead of Chris Beats, who's got ahead of Penn, and starting to stretch away in the Lamborghini as Newman now goes to the inside. He's got the line he wants down into the chicane. It'll be braking battle. Yes, Tabone just goes, you can have it, we'll live to fight another day, because if you go side by side through there, you're risking being up on them sausage curbs and into that wall, just as many drivers have done over the past. So Newman back up into 3rd place, and still wanted to finish on that podium after qualifying on pole, and that slowdown just struggling to get him out into the lead as we now move to a battle of Moldovan and Kieran Smart.
Yeah, that was a perfect move there, Sven Newman on Taboni. I mean, if you're going to do it, that's exactly how you do it, going into the Wall of Champion corners. Got it done just before the corner, managed to keep it in the corner and keep the play. So perfect example there of how to do it around the last 2 corners of this track. And like you say, I mean, some of the lines that we're watching Moldovan take, certainly on them last 2, he clatters that last curb on the Wall of Champions. You know, he sort of loses a lot of his time, so he certainly hasn't got the line. And like you were saying, I don't think this is probably his most favourite track, but still doing good at the moment. Currently in P11 with Kieran Smart just behind him and Engel just off the back of him at the moment. But certainly the driver at the moment that seems to be making the moves is John Derrick, you know, currently 1.7 seconds out in front over Richard Kafenku. And then Sven Newman now has got a big distance back, that 2.3 seconds to Kafenku's, but he's still having his battle with Taboni there, as we saw Sven Newman clatter that inside edge. And it's a good example here where you watch him in the background, you can actually see the cars and how much they bounce, obviously getting on 2 wheels, coming around that if they try and take too much, as we're currently watching Kieran Smart trying to make a move coming up into the Wall of Champions on Moldovan, but I'm not able to get it done at the moment. So, you know, Kieran there didn't take too much corner on the inside, so we'll have a decent amount of speed, but certainly fighting out and keeping Moldovan occupied during this race, Dave.
He certainly is, and I think drivers like Kieran Smart and Dominic Engel, Matthias Beer will be very happy to keep him honest. He's obviously been very strong in the opening 2 rounds. I think last time out had a bit of a race, a bit like Newman's had today, where he was up front and dropped back and sort of probably was disappointed with the result in the end. But today he's mithered in the midfield and making a little bit of progress. He's about half a second quicker than the car in front at the moment to get into that top 10. And he's dragging Smart, Engel, and Beer's just holding on at the back. That's Matthias Beer, as Florian Beer has rejoined the race. I think he must have been on a tow when we was talking about him earlier. He's just had a pit stop and has rejoined the race as we watch the battle with my favourite Leon Penn. Still trying to hold off Lewis Ward, but Chris Beats has been reeled back in by this group. He did have a bit more of a lead earlier on, and this group aren't really catching the top 4, so the top 4 look quite comfortable at the moment with 12 minutes to go, and it will be between them, especially Newman and Tabone, for that final podium position.
Yeah, so we've got 2 of the first 3 that were in the first race, Beats and Penn. Obviously Beats won out in Daytona over Penn by 6,000ths of a second in their first race, so I'm sure Leon Penn wants to give some payback and just beat Chris Beats on the line to just even out the scores of close finishes in the race. As we see Kieran Smart there spin out round the first corner, so loses a place, goes down to 15th, so it'll be interesting to see a replay here coming down obviously into the first corner, and we have Callum Engel behind him, obviously, just a bit deep in there, unfortunately hits him out on the back, and currently loses 2 spaces, Kieran Smart. So, you know, a P2, I think he's the prototype P2 amateur winners of the first series of the prototype series is our Kieran Smart. So we know he's a very quick driver and used to probably a lot faster cars. But when you were talking about Florian Beer there, Dave, I think he had a connection issue. So that's probably one of the other realistic effects of iRacing. Obviously, we don't have the mechanical failures that we do have in real life. But what we do have, and to every iRacer, is the most annoying thing. We have hardware issues, whether it's our steering wheel, whether it's our computer having a meltdown, or we just lose the connection. So, you know, the realism is still there from cars breaking down. We just don't have the cars breaking down, we just have our hardware breaking down. So he had a bit of an issue there, got disconnected, and unfortunately is currently 2 laps down. So it's good to see him going as we see a battle here with Beer and Engel going head to head into turn 1, as we see Matthias Beer just managing to get that off by Engel, but Engel will be right back on the back of him. It goes a little bit wide into turn number 2, so that gives Matthias Beer a little bit of breathing space coming down into turn 3 and 4, but obviously all over the back of Matthias Beer at the moment. So good to see him getting his little mojo back. I think obviously not being in the championships for a wee while as Matthias struggled a bit in Daytona, but I think he's starting to find his feet a little bit more and starting to move his way up in the field. So great to see him back in one of the ARL leagues, as it is for everyone else who's returning from the last season, or I think we had 6 new drivers in this season, Dave, so welcome to the newcomers as well.
Yeah, it's always nice to see some new drivers and some old faces out there. Matthias Beer actually on for his best result of the season so far with 12th. It's currently 14th, his best. But going back to the hardware issues, you're exactly right, but you know, if your equipment isn't up to the job in real life, you end up retiring from a race, and for whatever reason you have connection issues or anything like that. We're not all like Simon Pagenaud last year, who had a wheel issue and removed one whole wheel from his setup and put another one slid back in while he had a pit stop. So we're not all that lucky, I don't think.
No, definitely not. But, I've had it a few before, and I think the worst one I had was 24 hours around Le Mans. I was the second driver in on the 24 hours. Coming down the first long straight at Le Mans, my steering wheel got disconnected, and I literally smashed head on into the wall at the end of the first long straight going down. It's a Mulsanne straight, so pretty much wrote the car off 15 minutes. So I think we've all experienced something like that. Was super frustrating, as we see Oswald Hereford in 17th place, giving Garton a little bit of a flash show. Obviously not liking something that Garton's probably done just previous to him. So he'll have that, what we call the red mist in there, and thinking I'm going to pay you back for that. So we'll see if he makes any rather enthusiastic moves and lunges down into these sort of tight corners, but at the moment he's in P17 with Kieran Garton in 16th place at the moment.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Callum Garton during this race. He was moving up through the field. He has moved up 6 places, but in the pit stop he seemed to lose out a little bit, so maybe we've seen a mistake somewhere out there. As we now watch John Derrick, we're seeing the gap at the bottom of the screen just closing up by Gavencu in the Porsche. We've got 3 different makes in the top 3. The Lamborghini leads as they close in on the Mercedes and Thomas Minot to put a lap on the, I think it's the second lap on the drive, or no, just 1 lap. This will be the first time they've come across the back markers today. Derrick, Gavencu in Porsche, Newman in the BMW, just all coming up to behind Minot, and he'll know the score. They're all pro drivers in this, and probably see him jump out of the way as soon as the drivers are up behind him. He doesn't have the need of, say, Formula 1 to jump out the way, but these drivers respect each other enough to be sensible about it, as we now look at the 2 Porsches of Penn and Ward very close together, and Ward really looking to move that Team 11 car up into the top 6 and maybe have a last chance fight with Chris Beats for top 5 position. But Beats has just pulled away, and that Lamborghini quite good around this circuit, as we see it leading as well. 4 Lamborghinis in this race in 1st, 5th, 16th and 19th.
Definitely is. We see the spread of cars. First time we've had the Lamborghini lead in this race, and obviously we've got 6 minutes left, and we've got a Porsche in 2nd place. So unusual not to have the BMW dominance on the round, or it's really nice to not have the BMW dominance around. So we did see quite a few drivers thinking that the BMW was heavily overpowered currently in iRacing, so a lot of drivers moved over to it. But you know, good job to the guys that have stuck around and stuck with the car choices that they want to. And as we're certainly seeing now, we've got the drivers of the Lamborghini and the Porsche that are in P1 and P2. So you know, good on them for keeping all of the cars and not changing the field, as some people say, following the sheep, I suppose.
Yeah, we don't want to turn it into a BMW Cup, do we? It's nice to have a mix of cars, and circuits like Montreal are perfect, as I said before, for cars like the Porsche. Just take advantage of it. I think it's Laguna Seca up next, which is a tight, twisty circuit, and that will also be. I think there's only one really long straight on it, apart from a pull up the hill to the corkscrew, which might favour the BMW. It's so much narrower, the sand either side. It's going to be really difficult to overtake him on that circuit, and we may see a similar kind of theme to this race, where we have queues of cars all together and little gaps appearing here and there when people do make an overtake.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what ARL does really good. They have a really good mix of tracks, you know, have the fast tracks. So it almost gives emphasis to choose that different cars, as we see Sorensen. Was that Sorensen in the pits? Yeah, Sorensen currently in the pits. So it'll be interesting to find out what happened to him, as we see him coming down into... Oh, getting it slightly wrong into the turns number 9 and 10. Sorry, 8 and 9 with that. That's strange it came off there and stopped. It must have been some damage beforehand, because that wouldn't have written his car off if it had. It was very strange, but only the iRacing gods will clearly know what's happened there. As I'm currently watching Leon Penn, who's actually dropped off Chris Beeks at the moment, about 2 seconds behind him. So Penn's currently at the moment in a battle with Leon Ward and Matt Powlich in 7th and 8th place, so all covered quite closely together, whereas Powlich is, you know, right on to trying to get on the back. It's about Powlich is 8 seconds behind, so you know, it's Penn and Ward going on, as we see a challenge here for 2nd place. Sven Newman trying to get up on the outside of the World Champion. Richard Kafenku defending quite hard on the inside, so he's going to be a bit slower than Sven Newman, as we see Sven Newman go right into the back of him. So there, that inside line is so much slower than there. I know Sven's obviously flashing, but it was just a line that Richard Kafenku had to take through that line, and unfortunately it is a lot slower than if you take the racing line there. And as we saw there, Sven getting into the back of Kafenku, which would have rattled him a little bit, but he's now all over the back of him. So certainly the battle on track at the moment is for P2. But what this is doing exactly for the 2nd race for Newman is that John Derrick now, with these two battling out, the defensive lines that are going to be taken, he's just going to be extending his lead, as we can see the lead now currently at 3.9 seconds, with literally 2 minutes left to run in this race. So all down to Derrick now. If he keeps it clean, keeps the speed up and just follows his line and let these two battle it out, then I think he's got this race wrapped up.
Yeah, that was a really good defensive move by Gavenku. Just got onto the apex of the corner, stopped the car. It's not a brake test, but it just stops Newman getting the run out of a corner. And meanwhile, while that was happening, Tabone went straight across the final chicane and is now fallen into the clutches of Chris Beets. There's less than a second between them, as we see the battle still going on between Ward and Penn as well. So the battle's really coming to the fore here now. I think that may be Florian Beer on the back of it, just having a watching brief a lap down. So the multicolored car we can forget about, but Penn all over the back of Ward as they head down towards the chicane. He's pulled out, and that's Gavenku in the pits. Gavenku in from 2nd place. He must have not fueled enough, because he's in for a splash and dash with 1 minute to go.
Oh, that's probably the worst feeling in iRacing, not getting enough fuel. These guys obviously coming into the pits are just trying to eke out every single milliliter of fuel to try and get him through this lap, and unfortunately he's miscalculated there, was pretty much out on his own, so didn't have anybody to get behind to save. So Rich Kafenku from 2nd place and is just falling down the field, currently P9, P10, and he'll just fall down the field, probably get below Kamari in 14th place, coming out with Smart. So he's not going to be happy with that, you know, considering he was on for a decent finish. But what that has done now is it's let Sven Newman off the hook, P2 in this race, 3 seconds behind John Derrick, in no man's land at the moment. Toboni's about 7 seconds behind him. So he just needs to enjoy this race, keep it nice and clean. I don't think he's going to catch, he's certainly not going to catch John Derrick. This is going to be the last lap now, 3 seconds behind. So a really good drive from John Derrick, you know, first one to pit out of the front runners, and it didn't quite pay off for him, but what he has had tonight, Dave, is he certainly had the speed over the rest of the field, and has certainly shown that tonight.
Yeah, he's certainly shown that, and he's dominated the race after Newman's mistake early on, as John Derrick comes across the line, take victory in Montreal and throw himself into the championship contention. Newman takes second to extend his championship lead, as Tabone will just about hold off Derrick, beat at the line, but we had a spin in the background. I'm not sure who it was. Ward and Penn come across the line, still waiting for Paluch. It might have been Paluch who spun. Yes, it was. It was a dark car I saw in the background, and he comes across the line in 7th, Gribstad 8th, Hitler in 9th, and that issue later on for Kavenku has put Moldovan into the top 10 on what might have been a disappointing night for him. Engel in 11th and Matthias Beer in 12th, but Gavenku comes home in 13th after being second.
That's a bitter pill to swallow for anyone, you know, in a pro race, second place, battling it out for second place, and then realizing you have to go into the pits to get some fuel because you're not going to make it to the end of the race. It's I feel sorry for him because he did have a really good round there, was at the front of the field for the majority of that race, and one tiny mistake has put him down into P13. So probably the biggest mover on the field through we look through the grid was Matthias Beer, up 7 places, but the majority of the field is it was a very calm one, I thought, Dave, where, you know, we normally some big numbers of changes within the field, but if we look down the grid position changes, there's you know, the majority are 2 or 3 places up, won or lost, so it's good on that. So yeah, right. I think, Dave, we've got somebody in the waiting area that we can actually have in, as we had nobody in the interview. So let's pull in our race winner and get him into the commentary box. Welcome into the commentary box, John.
Thank you very much, guys.
Well, I mean, what an interesting race. Up there, you certainly had the pace for that round. We were looking at, and we were talking on the stream about the pit stop strategy. And we did notice that you were the first one out of the front runners to pit early. Looked like when you came out, you got caught behind a few back markers. So you lost some of your lead that you had, but you certainly drove away with it from the end. So, I mean, that's certainly how we saw the race. How was the race for you, mate?
Yeah, it was a little bit difficult at that point because obviously I came up to a back marker, and I know this pit entry is an absolute nightmare if you're right behind the car. I've learnt that a few times. So I sort of thought if I catch this back marker, I was about a second back or so, and I thought I'll pit now. But I still was a little bit cautious. So I was like, I don't want to rear end this guy. So pitted a lap early and then just was a bit too slow on the pit entry. So obviously Richard came out a little bit behind me, but managed to pull away and keep the gap a little, which was good.
Be interesting that we always talk about setups, and you're the first one we've had in the interview room. How do you go about setting up your cars for each of the sessions? Are you trying to maximise your downforce to get your frontline speed, or are you looking at a mixture of setups depending on what the track is?
Yeah, I mean, most of the time I think I prefer to drive as low downforce as possible, because I think I'm a bit more of a very passive guy who just likes to save fuel, sit behind and jump in the pit stops rather than, a bit more downforce and push. And I also think, if you make mistakes on corner exit and you haven't got the top speed there, it's a little bit difficult. So that's at least my philosophy. Try and have as least downforce as possible, I guess, to get through the race, basically.
Yeah, you certainly didn't have that philosophy tonight because you pretty much led for the majority of that race. So out the front, was you sort of feeling the pressure behind you from what was Richard Kofenko, who unfortunately seemed to underfuel his car and had to jump in the pits on the last couple of laps? But was you feeling a little bit of pressure from the guys behind you?
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the race, I mean, Sven just walked away at the start. He clearly had the pace tonight. It's just a shame about the slowdowns. But yeah, coming out the pits, wanted to try and keep the gap, but did feel a little bit of pressure, especially towards the end of the race where, the tyres start to go and you sort of, you're thinking about what you're having for dinner afterwards because it's like the race is so close to finishing. So a little bit distracted at times, but yeah, just trying to keep the gap as small as possible. Because I mean, the BMWs just eat the curbs and the chicanes. So that was the big point where I knew I was just losing time and just had to sort of manage as much as possible, not get a slowdown, but try and push through there as much as possible, I guess.
Yeah, so interesting you're talking about there. So we had a discussion on the stream about the car selections for this championship, and the car of choice seemed to be very much the BMW, and we saw their dominance in the first two rounds. But this round was completely different. So in the top 10, we only had four BMWs, whereas in previous rounds it was like 90% BMWs with the odd Porsche thrown in there for good measure. But certainly this track has certainly suited the Porsche and the Lamborghini a lot more. Have you found that, and are you happy you stuck with the choice of the Lamborghini?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Lambo, Lambo Audi, I think are very versatile cars most of the time. Like they have their bad tracks when it's raw power, but like the twisty bits in the middle of the track are definitely really good for the Lambo. I mean, it's not the best on the curbs, but when you need to get the lock on, especially in the hairpin and stuff, it's definitely quite useful. So I think it's one of the good all round cars. But obviously, when the BMW can run such a low wing and just accelerates off the corner, and you're just like, help. Little bit difficult sometimes, but yeah, it's all about compensating with the lower wing and stuff like that to try and keep up with them.
Yeah, so definitely. So you were currently starting this race in eighth place. With that win, that'll certainly move you up in the championship standings. Where are your aspirations this year? Where would you like to try and finish within the championship?
Yeah, I mean, start of the season was not the best at Daytona. Obviously, last week, I mean, the Lambo wasn't the best at Interlagos, but I also picked up a penalty doing a bit of a stupid move on the last lap. But I mean, top 5 finish would be great, given the start of the season at least. But I'd like to think I've got the pace to be up there most of the races as long as things go my way and get a good qualifying because it's a bit of a busy traffic jam at the start of quali sometimes. So yeah, subject to doing okay in quali and not doing stupid things to people. Yeah, I think top 5 is where I'd like to be. Podium would be great, but yeah, wait and see.
Well, you've got a podium certainly in this round, and I think we've got another track next that will probably suit the Porsche and the Lamborghinis more than the BMW, Laguna Seca. So a relatively short track really for these cars, and probably the size of grid that we're going to have. How are you looking forward to that track?
Yeah, I mean, I've not driven it properly before, so will need to learn the track. But I mean, those sort of tracks I really like. Sort of really good flow ones. I think it's really good to get in a rhythm with. So I think Lambo would be really good around there. And obviously, like with a track like that, that's really difficult to pass. You've just got to qualify well. So the pressure will be on, but hopefully it'll be a good race.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to that. Don't know if you've got any questions there, Dave, that you would like to ask John.
Well, you beat me on the championship one because obviously John's now got a fifth and a first in the championship, which puts him 1 point beyond Moldovan in the championship. So his aspirations of being top 4 is certainly there. But
Yeah, I think it's just very versatile, basically. I think it's just a very fun car to do because I think it covers a range of corner types, basically. But ultimately, I think regardless, I think every car has its better track. I think I wanted to sort of try the Porsche and BMW. I don't really drive them, but I think as well, if you know a car quite well and you learn it over a season a bit better, I think it'll be really good.
I suppose that's always like home comforts, shall we say?
Yes, yes. When the going gets tough, at least you know what you're doing. Yeah,
yeah, and the setups you may already have for it. So it's always a bit good to have the home comforts. But congratulations on your win today.
Yeah. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for the broadcast.
John, before we let you go, mate, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to?
Oh yeah. Thanks to everyone at Rottenbury, Ahmed, who's not racing at the moment, but he's very good with his setup knowledge. And obviously, just thanks to you guys for the broadcast and things, and also to Tam Liveries, who do our liveries for the cars as well.
Very nice liveries there, indeed, mate. Very striking. So, congratulations on the P1 tonight here at the Circuit of Villeneuve, and we look forward to seeing you again next week at Laguna Seca. Good luck, John.
Thanks very much, guys.
So there we had John, our obviously first place winner there. So just quickly, as we obviously got John in quite quickly, because we're not used to seeing people into the interview room. So we thought we'd get him certainly in straight away to see his results. So the results from that race, just to recap, was John Derrick in first, Sven Newman second, Brandon Toboni in third, Chris Beats fourth, Lewis Ward in fifth place, Leon Penn, 6th, Michael Palic, 7th, Hakon Grebstad in 8th, Otto Hitira in 9th, Bogdan Moldovan in 10th, Dominic Engel, 11th, Matthias Beer, Richard Gofenku, obviously, after that disastrous, unfortunately needing a little splash and dash at the end from 2nd place in 13th, Kurt Kamari in 14th, Kieran Smart, 15th, Richard Watkins, 16th, Osted Hereford 17th, Callum Garton in 18th, Ronald Grossman 19th, Thomas Minot 20th, 1 lap down, Dennis Miser 2 laps down with Florian Beer, Castor Sorensen 4 laps, and 2 retirements for the race, Luke Reimer and Gayton Anger. So Dave, interesting race. It's good to see a new driver sat at the top, but yet again we had another good ride from Sven Newman, who will now be out and out leader going into the next round at Laguna Seca.
Yeah, we've had 2 similar tracks and one a bit tighter, and Sven's been at the front for all of them. It's hard to look past him now. He's extended his championship lead and hasn't got drivers all over him, but we've got many more rounds to come. We sort of actually don't know what type of circuits they'll have to challenge themselves on near the end of the season, so that could throw up a little bit of a curveball. But Newman certainly looking very strong, Penn looking consistent, and Derrick has certainly put that first round behind him and thrown himself into the championship hunt as well. And then next week we'll have to see whether Bogdan can pull back after finishing 10th today. I would say that's a recovery by him. It's given him a good solid score to fall back on if needs be, but he'll be looking to be back at the front in Laguna Seca.
Yeah, definitely. So interesting round coming up in round 4 for Laguna Seca, but a big shout out to our sponsors of this series, Virtual Racing School, SDK Gaming, and Apex Racing Academy. If you've liked the video tonight, guys, on YouTube, if you give us a thumbs up from it, that'd be greatly appreciated. And also subscribe, as mentioned before. We got many series coming up on Apex Racing TV, covering pretty much every car that you can imagine over the next couple of months. So head across to apexracingtv.com/schedule to see all the upcoming events. Also, have a look at our social media page. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just look for Apex Racing TV, where you'll get all the news on our series and everything like that. So that's pretty much it for round number 3 of the Apex Racing League GT Trophy Pro Series here at Circuit de Villeneuve. Congratulations to John Derrick for first place and Sven Newman, who is now the outright championship leader for the current series. So we'll look forward to seeing you in round number 4 in Laguna Seca next week. From us at the commentary team, with Dennis in the production team, we are going to say good night.
Virtual Racing School was developed to provide support to the next generation of sim racers. No matter if you're a rookie or veteran or what car or track you'll be racing, our goal is to provide training every step of the way. We found that iRacing can be quite difficult without proper training. There needed to be a way to prepare for on-track racing. With VRS, you can literally learn from the best sim racers in the world, including 4-time NASCAR iRacing World Champion Ray Alfalla.
And Ray Alfalla is a 4-time champion of the NASCAR Picanifreeze iRacing Series.
3-time iRacing Grand Prix World Champion Martin Kroenke.
Martin Kroenke becomes a 3-time world champion.
Rallycross World Champion Mitchell de Jong.
Mitchell de Jong is now champion for the iRacing Rallycross World Championship Series.
And many other top sim racers. Data packs include everything you need to start learning. Our World Championship coaches create the data packs by setting a hot lap or a series of fast laps for you to compare, analyze, and replicate. Data packs also include a tutorial where the coach points out techniques they use to hit the fast lap. This gives you access to the latest driving techniques and setups before you even hit the track. Sign up for a free account and download the VRS telemetry logger. With this application running seamlessly in the background, your laps automatically start syncing to the VRS website. From there, you can analyze and compare 2 laps of your choice, whether it's your data, the coaches, or your teammates. VRS will automatically target improvement opportunities so you can get up to speed even faster. VRS also makes it easy for you to request and schedule one-on-one or group coaching sessions. These sessions can range from 30 to 90 minutes, and you can select the car, track, and setup combination of your choice. Visit virtualracingschool.com today to sign up and get started.